There's a franchise this generation that's become the second best-selling series right behind Call of Duty, and it's had both incredible highs and depressing lows. Ever since this franchise was announced and had footage showed off 6 years ago, the game has become an infamous name in gaming. While Destiny 1 launched as one of the most disappointing games of all time, due to the game being barren of both content and story compared to the initial trailers at Sony's E3 conference, it still launched to incredible success and built up a massive fan base, and throughout its 3-year lifespan, the game continued to grow and evolve into something special enough that it accumulated not just a large fan base, but one of the largest and loyal in all of gaming. Large enough to jumpstart many YouTube careers and fan events. With how Destiny 1 had managed to go from something truly awful to something truly great, the hopes and expectations of fans were that Destiny 2 would launch as a complete game and be on par with Destiny 1 Year 3. At first, when Destiny 2 launched in 2017, it was met with widespread success and praised once more, as critics all claimed that the art style, story, combat, locations, and much more were some of the best in the industry. However, just a couple weeks after launch, there was a problem beginning to stir amongst the community. The fans had realized that the story wasn't all that great, the patrols and lost sectors were disappointing, the AI was still incredibly stupid, the PvP was limiting the PvE, and overall there just wasn't much to do. Then once this realization had set in, Bungie made mistake after mistake after mistake. And on top of that, the first 2 expansions were considered mediocre at best. However, the game's music, combat, art style, and overall feel was still incredible. And once Bungie released the Forsaken expansion, the game was finally considered to be in a great spot once again, similar to the Taken King from Destiny 1. Once Bungie had shown it could make Destiny 2 great once more, Activision had openly stated their distaste in Destiny, while Bungie was happy with the game and enjoyed being more open to fans. Then soon after, something happened that no one could have predicted. Bungie and Activision ended their 10-year contract early, and Bungie was now entirely on their own, and got to keep the Destiny IP. Throughout much of Destiny's lifespan, fans have always stated that Activision was the source of Bungie's greed, the awful deals on PlayStation, and holding Bungie back from fully realizing what Destiny could be. Now 8 months later since the Bungie-Activision split, Bungie has released their first expansion, introduced a plethora of changes to the game's fundamentals, and released a large portion of the entire Destiny package that's entirely free to play, and might possibly change AAA gaming forever. So now it's time to find out, was Activision holding Bungie back, or were they simply a scapegoat for Bungie's own shortcomings? Well, to properly answer that question, we need to go back to the first Destiny and do a quick overview of the timeline, from Destiny's inception to where it is now. When Bungie had first released their vidocs, talking about their next game they were doing after Halo, hype was incredibly high. As with Halo, Bungie proved they were capable of making not just great games, but true system sellers that could compete with the largest juggernauts in gaming. Everyone knew Bungie could make an incredibly fun game that had great gameplay, music, story, art style, and be centered around playing with your friends. So when Destiny was shown off as having a really unique story with amazing worlds, different factions, cool looking weapons and armor, spaceships, and so much more, it seemed like a no-brainer that Bungie was fine on their own and their next game could very well change gaming. Then shortly later E3, when the game was shown off in a vertical slice format, the game managed to look better than ever, with incredible shooting mechanics, enemy types, loot, and of course the shared world experience. It all looked insane, and the story had everyone intrigued.
Why is the city breathing down my neck?
Why don't you put that down so we can talk?
Out here in the wild, this is how we talk.
Then the following year, major Bungie higher-ups that had been at the studio since the early days, Joe Staten and Marty O'Donnell, had left. And when the game finally came out after a delay, many reviewers and YouTubers could easily see the game's content was as wide as an ocean, but as deep as a puddle. This less than stellar release, followed by leaks showing the DLC was already done but locked behind a paywall, alongside articles showing what had happened to Destiny behind the scenes, exposed that Bungie and Activision had not only failed on their ambitious goals, but delivered an incredibly boring and hollow product. The game's initial sales were great, but its concurrent players along with the fan enthusiasm was rather low compared to expectations. Then with the Taken King, Bungie had finally addressed most of the game's shortcomings, added a pretty decent story, more great loot and armor, made good use of Nathan Fillion.
How about an unsanctioned up, using modified stealth tech, to, well, take down the enemy.
And a 2 year 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 2 year
infiltrate a dreadnought above Saturn's rings so we can knock out its weapons, create a transmat zone, and send in the cavalry.
How about test flight? It'll be waiting for you when you're ready.
Introduced a great location and new enemies, and overall just gave players a lot more content. Oh, and it also included some amazing new subclasses. With this DLC, Bungie had managed to revive the game, and once The Rise of Iron was released, Destiny finally became a game worth owning and experiencing. And when Bungie promised that they had learned from their mistakes, expectations were incredibly high for the game's sequel. By now I'm sure many of you know the story of Destiny 2 at launch, from both my intro as well as the general gaming consensus. Destiny 2 was better than vanilla Destiny 1, but a barren disaster compared to Destiny 1 Year 3. The game had made many requested additions, but it also made a laundry list of changes that no one had asked for. The game had gone from being a time sink for hardcore fans to a casual game that could be completed by only playing 2 hours a week. This was great for casuals, but went against everything that had attracted their large and devoted fan base. The first 2 DLCs came and went, and Forsaken had managed to convince some people to give it a try, and those that did found the game was finally good again. However, many people still didn't like how much money Destiny required to keep up with, and many also didn't trust Activision, a publisher that's been about as anti-consumer as it comes ever since the last console generation. But once Activision and Bungie split, they no longer just had the public's curiosity, but also managed to get their attention. And on October 1st, Bungie released their newest expansion, Shadowkeep, and the free-to-play version of Destiny 2 called New Light. This obviously paid off in terms of hype and the size of their player base, as it became Steam's top-selling game and even broke their previous record of most concurrent players. In fact, the size of this new influx was so high, it even required emergency maintenance to meet the new demand. Is this new hype and interest well-deserved though, or just a temporary fad? So after finally getting into the servers, after that massive influx of new players, I've had time to see and experience this new chapter in the game's life. And I have to say, what Bungie has done here is truly something incredible. And while I have some complaints of Shadowkeep, it's hard to be upset or feel disappointed when what's offered here is not just a good amount of quality content, but a damn good experience. So for new players, the game has gone free to play in a version called New Light. This allows players to play a tutorial mission in the Cosmodrome similar to Destiny 1, and then play all the story missions from vanilla Destiny 2 and the first 2 expansions. Alongside the ability to play those story missions, the free players can also visit all zones of the game, including zones and expansions that aren't being made free, such as the Tangled Shore, the Dreaming City, and the Return to the Moon. Within these locations, the free players can partake in lost sectors, public events, and other world elements. Joining the ability to explore every patrol zone, players can play everything in the PvP called the Crucible. This means new players can play all modes, play on all maps, and earn all the Crucible armor and weapons. New players can also play every strike mission from Year 1, partake in the Year 1 raid and raid layers, explore the Whisper of the Worms dungeon, play the PvP/PvE Gambit mode, access Year 1 exotics, artifacts, annual pass activities, Black Armory forges, and so much more. Basically, Destiny 2 is entirely free, with the exception of the Forsaken and Shadowkeep story missions, strikes, and raid elements. And that is something to celebrate. This is an absolute insane amount of content, and it's something I've never seen done before, at least on this scale. The amount of variety players are getting here is mind-numbing, and with it being free, every player needs to install this on their Xbox, PC, or PS4. And with cross-play saves and no exclusive content BS on PS4, this feels like a truly massive game that everyone can and should play. Okay, now let's transition over to the new content and the new changes made. Destiny 2's newest expansion, Shadowkeep, brings us Guardians back to the moon. But now it's at least twice the size of the old zone from Destiny 1, and the main enemies of the expansion will once again be the horrifying and creepy Hive. But due to a mishap on Eris' part, a dark force is now resurrecting old Destiny bosses, and bringing back Guardians' worst nightmares, such as Gaul, Crota, and more. Of course, no spoilers here, but this DLC's missions should be enticing for new players, while serving as a nostalgic trip for Destiny vets. Moving past the story, the biggest change to the game's fundamentals is Armor 2.0. Now you will start with the base set of an armor, and then add perks into it that you've unlocked to create custom sets. A big inspiration for the new way armor works seems to be MMO mixed with RPG, with a massive focus on stats, where week after week, Guardians will be trying to raise their armor a couple percentage points. Bungie's basically trying to make every armor slot have meaning now, including space for the new finisher melee moves. This addition is great, as now with the added Season artifact, there is an infinite power grind for players. Leveling this up will grant the tools the players need to complete the hardest difficulties on the Nightfall, the hardest raid challenge, or the new dungeon. The new dungeon is now deep in the moon, and full of traps and other secrets, and will give players a smaller raid-like experience, but with the scale of a 3-person fire team. And thankfully, there are finally even modes in PvP built around 3v3. Now the Crucible has been reworked, bringing back tons of old Destiny 1 maps, and allowing players to actually pick what modes they want to play. Bungie is trying to make this PvP one that everyone can enjoy. In fact, that sums up this expansion and the new Destiny pretty well. Bungie is finally free of the real darkness, Activision, and to show fans what they're capable of and where they want to take Destiny 2 over its 5-year lifespan, Bungie has made a game that everyone can play, everyone can experience, and everyone can enjoy. There's just so much content here for new players, and so much content in Shadowkeep for Destiny vets, and while the story may be disappointing, and the PvP is still incredibly unbalanced at times, it doesn't detract from the fact that what Bungie has done here is incredible. With this new era of Destiny 2, Bungie has come a long way from their flawed origins, and now they are truly changing gaming forever. With roughly 80% of the content free, everyone should try this game, and with all kinds of ways to play, ranging from story missions, strikes, exploration, raids, dungeons, a multitude of PvP modes, and so much more, there's something here for everyone. Bungie has stated that for Destiny 2, this is now entirely the game they want to make, and Shadowkeep and New Light are simply the first steps in the long road ahead for Destiny 2. A road that anyone on any platform can play on, and one easy enough for casuals to try out, but with enough depth and content to keep hardcore fans busy for years to come. Destiny 2 will be what you make out of it. Want a casual PvP game for when you only have an hour of free time? You got it. Want a solely co-op focused PvE game to put a couple hours into? You got it. Want a balanced console looter shooter with enough PvE and PvP content to keep you busy and occupied for thousands of hours? You got it. Bungie has had many ups and downs throughout the years, and for a while people all thought they had peaked with Halo, but now with Destiny 2 New Light and Destiny 2 Shadowkeep, it appears Bungie may finally be approaching their true destiny, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for them. Well, that wraps up this video on the new form of Destiny 2. So let me know what you think of this new Bungie and the changes and additions they've made to Destiny 2 down in the comments. And if you're excited to give it a try, or if it still doesn't appeal to you. If you'd like to contact me about anything Destiny related or otherwise, as well as stay up to date on my videos, then go follow my Twitter account linked below. If you want awesome perks such as behind the scenes of my videos, involvement in the creation progress, mentions in the credits such as seen here, and much more, then go and check out my Patreon below and find a tier that fits you best. With that said, let's chat down in the comments. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, be sure to leave a like, share the video, and hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you all on the next Shepherd Gaming video. Keyless Ally.